And so by God's grace, we're thankful to be here and again to see each one of you. Thankful for the church here holding the ropes well for us. And so we're very thankful to the Lord and all that He has done and continues to do. But before we begin, let me open us up in a word of prayer, asking the Lord to bless our time now. Our Father in heaven, oh God, we are thankful to be called your people. Thankful for the provision of Christ for us. And Lord, we ask now that our hearts would be attuned to the workings of your grace. Lord, we thank you for all that you have done. And we even thank you for the promise of the special presence of Christ as we are gathered here together on this Lord's Day. Lord, please bless our time together. Help us to live in such a way that we would bear much fruit, fully pleasing to you, O God. God, help us now, not only in our time of report, but also would you help us as we come together to Mount Zion to worship you in your holy name. Lord, empower us by your Spirit in order to offer a pleasing sacrifice unto your name. And Lord, we ask these things in the name above all names, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Well, again, we are thankful to be here. And I probably should start with a caveat, maybe by way of asking for your prayers. I don't normally preach or teach in English anymore, and so it's become a foreign language to me. So I appreciate your prayers as I am going to attempt to do this report in English. Also preach this morning and this evening in English, and so pray for me. Well, let's begin. Some of you, there might be some new faces here. We were sent back to Costa Rica by this church here in September. We previously lived in Nicaragua for a year in 2017, ended up in Costa Rica in 2018 in God's providence, worked to establish and plant this church, named the Reformed Baptist Church of Liberia, Costa Rica, or Liberia. Liberia is the town, the northwest town on the Pacific coast, and so we were sent back to continue laboring there. And so you'll hear a bit of that report, but that's just a little context. If you have more questions, please come to me afterwards. But what I want to do is just kind of go month by month since we have arrived and try to do just a little bit of snapshots of what the Lord has done. By God's grace, we are settling in. We're thankful for that. All the transition, the time, even a couple years here of that transition we've had, we're very thankful unto God for allowing us that. And so in September, we were immediately greeted, unbeknownst to us, a welcome party. And so after service, one of the first or second Lord's Days, we were trying to talk to people, and everybody left all of a sudden. We're like, what happened? And so they all went to one of the deacons' houses, and they told us, hey, we're going to have dinner over here. And so they said, we need a little time, though. So we waited and finally showed up, and lo and behold, all the church was there. And so it was a wonderful just gift to us as we arrived. Very thankful for that. And all of the provision of the Lord, all the members were there, and we were able to share that sweet time. But I will say, something of an adjustment is living in Costa Rica. The challenges that come with it, not to complain, but just the realities of it. The first Lord's Day we were there, the power went out, and so our brother Jose was preaching, and he preached in the dark, and we worshiped in the dark, and so we were thankful to be able to do such a thing, and we had to pay special attention through that. We were also met with a new fountain in our front yard, and it sprung a leak the first or second days that we got there, but we were thankful that was repaired, and then soon after, one of our spigots outside also sprung a leak, so we've had water issues right through and through, and a few new pets that we have found alongside. They don't hurt anybody, so they're fine. And he was, just about the size of my hand. But we were very thankful through that. In September, I got there the 19th, and Courtney and the kids arrived the 22nd, and so really the first couple weeks just settling in. And by God's grace, and that leads us to October, when our container arrived. And so it was 8 weeks from the time we shipped it from here to the time it arrived. We were very thankful. The first couple of weeks were a little challenging as we were camping sleeping on air mattresses and whatnot. But the Lord still gave us everything that we need in those moments, and the brethren were so helpful in providing whatever it was. And so I believe it was October 9th, around there, and what they ended up having to do was unload the container, and they packed it in this little box truck, and only 2 things were broken, so we're thankful for that. But they did arrive in a very timely manner, and we've talked and spoke to other missionaries who were there, and one couple particularly, it lasted 6 months before they were able to get their container, so we were very thankful and have nothing to complain about. Also at the beginning of October, I was asked to preach at the Singles Conference in San Jose. Many of you remember Pastor Alexander Leon, who was with us here back in 2022, I believe, somewhere around there. And we had about 35 that came to the conference, and it was really just very neat to see because we had singles from Guatemala, from Nicaragua, from Panama, in different countries. And there, just keep in mind, that's like coming from another state because they're tiny countries. But it was beautiful to see the effort that many of these made. And I told them, my promise to them was, I'm not here to preach you so that you would get married today, but so you would live in a way that honors Christ in your singleness. And one day, if the Lord so chooses, to allow you to be married. But we had a wonderful time there, and it was a blessing to be a part of that. And so about the second weekend, I preached 5 sermons here, and so that was quite the welcome. But it was just a blessed time. Keep praying for San Jose. Now you see, this is the building. This was the conference that I stayed for the Lord's Day, and there was not a seat to be had here. And so there were, I would estimate, over 200 there. They're having space issues, and this is a big church building. And so they're praying about doing a church plant in a town called Cartago, where some of the men, one of the deacons lives. About 30 members live in that area. And then when I was there that same weekend, he got a call from a group in the southern part of the country and said, hey, we'd like to plant a church here. Will you come and help us? And so we see God's provision in that. So pray for those potential church plants, those works. Also October, we spent, I think, 2 trips, counting the one to the Singles Conference, going to San Jose. And usually, to put it in perspective, I think it's 150, 60 miles. And it took us 6 hours to get there. So there are too many cars, not enough roads. There's only one way, and just the traffic collapses when there's a wreck or whatever it may be. So there's plenty of time of fellowship on the road. But you have to be patient. You have to really plan the whole day. But we had to go to San Jose, and we went to the embassy. My passport ran out of pages, and so I had to go get a new one. And it came in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. It was very quick, but we were able to go to San Jose and spend the day. We also found a treat from home. You can see what that is, the new Krispy Kreme. And they all got the Costa Rican flavors there, so. Close by. Almost walking distance. No. But it was just a good day to spend, do some shopping there while we were there, and some things that you can't find in Rica. It's normally, if there's no traffic, it takes about 3.5, 4 hours to get there. And it's beautiful. You get to see the entire country. But you just have to plan the whole day. It's just traveling there is the whole day. But also in October, the following week, we were received into membership there at the Reformed Baptist Church of Rica. By God's grace, we were able to give our testimonies and also just have the membership vows and covenants read before the congregation. And we received shortly thereafter. And so we're thankful for that. Also, October was the month of visits and conferences. We had a team of several pastors, 3 pastors and 2 brothers from First Baptist Church of Puxico, Missouri. They're also a church in Arbinet. Pastor Justin Miller came to do 2 conferences, and the other pastors preached a few messages as well. The first one was every October we do the Reformation Conference there, and so they focused a lot on that aspect. But also, the following Wednesday, we had a conference on the dangers, if we could say it that way, of gentle parenting. And so he exposited the word, was very thankful, and it's something that's very needed in Latin American cultures, and especially Costa Rica. And so that was a wonderful time. And here's a snapshot. Something you'll know, they always have to take a picture after the conference. And so this was all that attended there. And being a Wednesday, not everybody could come, but it was very well attended on that Wednesday. And we had several from the church in Bagaces that you can see there. Pastor Emmanuel, and then Andres is somewhere in here as well. And so it was a tremendous blessing. But also during their trip, we were able to have some significant times of evangelism and really Bible distribution. And so this was the group that we went out and we went to Bagaces to help the church there in their endeavors to get a Bible in every home in Bagaces. And I'm estimating probably 5,000 households, maybe more. So far, they've gotten 1,200 homes visited and a Bible placed in those homes. And so they are doing a great labor. And it's encouraging to see. It's very different than if you could imagine going down the street here, knocking on the door, "Can I give you a Bible?" You'd probably be met with a slam door in your face. But there, the people are genuinely interested. We tell them, "Hey, these brothers have came from the States. They want to give you a Bible, and they want to share a short gospel message with you. Would that be okay?" And every one of them said yes. And so it was wonderful to see. And so we divided up and translated in different groups. Andres translated, I translated, and Pastor Adrian. So we had 3 groups. And you kind of see here, just going door to door, having great conversations. I think Pastor Adrian had a conversation of near an hour with somebody just asking really good questions. And they were just thankful, genuinely thankful. Most of them come from either a Catholic background or a prosperity gospel, Pentecostalism. And so there's not a real clear understanding of the gospel. Many times it was, well, I got to do this in order for God to be pleased with me, or this. And so we had very clear conversations. So just pray that the Lord would bless those efforts. And even Pastor Andres from Bagaces told me that recently in one of these Bible distributions, they went to the home of an older lady, and she started coming to their services. And she's been at every one since. And he's convinced the Lord has saved her. Even so much, she said, "Can I go and share the gospel with you guys as you go out to all those who need to hear Christ?" And so it's just wonderful to see. She's there at every service reading her Bible. So pray for fruit in that endeavor. And we also hear, this is the church in Rica. We were able to do some evangelism there around the church and in the local parks. We're about 3 blocks from the main park, Central Park in Rica. We went to some homes, but being in the middle of the day, not many people were there. And so just pray for those continued efforts. Pray that we would be more consistent in our evangelism and that the Lord would bring much fruit from that. And we also had 2 little helpers, Franco and Jude. These are the sons of Pastor Andres. I don't know if many of you, I don't know when that would have been, but they visited with us, their family. They were a lot smaller than, but they were excited to help us. And so that was really October, and we were thankful for the trip from the brothers in Missouri. It was very profitable. They, from the radio, went to San Jose, and I think did 2 more conferences down there. And so they were tired. We always say that when somebody comes, we got to squeeze out every bit of the juice of your trip, and so you leave tired if you come down to preach. But we're thankful for that and their disposition to come and visit us. This leads us to November. And so a few things happened in November. There was a member received, our sister Delsa. Her family travels an hour and a half away from the church, almost to the border of Nicaragua. And they had heard about John MacArthur once a time. They started looking for churches like that. They found our church, started attending. And what I found out just a few weeks ago when we had them at our home for lunch is that the first time they ever visited church was when I was visiting the church and preaching in 2022. And so by God's grace, they came back. But it's very special. The family, the husband claims to be a believer. He has a little supermarket in town and doesn't want to close it for the Lord's Day, wants to keep making as much money as possible. And so her and 3 of the children, they travel and they rotate. One has to stay and help the father. But pray for this family. We're very thankful for them. And they have younger children, well, young to us, I guess, 25, 30, somewhere around there. And there's 2 of them, 2 sisters and 1 brother in that family that are attending our church. And we're praying. I pressed the son a little bit and asked him when his testimony was going to come. And he said, very, very soon, very soon. And so pray for them and that family and those efforts to drive that distance for a healthy church. Because there's nothing in that area. And even I told them we need to be praying about that area, that part of Costa Rica, a town named La Cruz, the cross that's up there. That once upon a time, 6-7 years ago, we tried to start a Bible study there and had a few bit of interest, but not a lot. And so we eventually decided to stop. But who knows what the Lord may do. So pray for that. Also November, we introduced Thanksgiving to the brethren, and they love it. And so we had 42 people at our home on that day, that Thursday, that we celebrated Thanksgiving. And you can do Thanksgiving outside there, 80 degrees, and so it was nice. But we set up all the tables outside, right along the street in our neighborhood, and had a wonderful time, a fellowship, and I was able to find a turkey. And so they're not common there. They call it in Costa Rica the big chicken. But I did find at Price Mart, which is equivalent to Costco, a butterball turkey there. And I was able to grill that up, and they really enjoyed it. And so it was just a wonderful, sweet time of fellowship. Unfortunately, that day ended in me having to go to the hospital. Something got lodged in my eye. My Courtney was cutting my hair, and it was eventful, to say the least, trying to cook and get everything ready. Thank the Lord, it was just a small scratch on my cornea. I ended up going to the ER, which I paid a total of $80 for, so very cheap, so we ended up going. But thankful that it was nothing more than that the Lord gave Courtney special grace that day when I was unable to help as much as possible. So, also, in late November, we were able to receive a donation of new chairs. Very thankful for this. If y'all have seen the pictures before, it was the lifetime white plastic chairs. And they're really conducive to not allowing you to fall asleep. So that was the good thing. But very uncomfortable. And so these were given to us. And we're very thankful. At the end of November, they arrived. And we had them installed and put in. And so we're very thankful. And one of the things that we are focusing on, Pastor Adrian and I, that we want to really promote within the church is this church has received a lot of things. Okay? They've received the building. It was gifted to them. They've received many of these things. They even have, soon to be, God willing, a pastor laboring for them, which they don't have to pay for. And so our goal, our prayer, is that this church would really see these things as a gift from God, but it would produce within it more of a sacrificial living for the gospel in this church. And not just a mentality of, well, that's fine, the gringos will take care of it. But they would say, no, we need to give more of ourselves. We need to use these gifts. And thankfully, even the deacons have been really pushing that to remind the brethren there. So please join us in praying for that, praying that the Lord would not just allow us to be receivers, but also givers, and that we would pray and look beyond the four walls of the congregation. And so this leads us now to December, and that snow is not in Costa Rica. That's here when we arrived. Quite the change in temperature. Some of you saw the message on the signal group. I think we went from 90 to 13 degrees, so it was a little bit of a shock. Thankfully, it's warmed up. I appreciate your intercessory prayers for that the weather would warm up. But we're very thankful to be here. But in the beginning part of December, we were able to have a Christmas dinner, similar to what you guys do here at the Christmas banquet. We hosted it in the church, and we were tasked with the cooking team. And so Victor is a brother who recently joined in the last couple of years. He came out of a Pentecostal church, similar to what I've explained of prosperity gospel, whatnot. And he is a chef at Four Seasons down at one of the resorts. And so he was charged with preparing all the meal for us, and we were his helpers. So we had a great day, great time of fellowship preparing. And I know some have asked, this is actually a tenderloin, and inside is chicken, and it's wrapped with different vegetables and different kind of things. The only downside was you had to cook the beef up to temperature of the chicken, and so it got a little overdone for my taste. But it was still wonderful, and we had a few different hymns and different things that were shared, and even the children. I don't know. Let's see if you can hear this. It may not work. And so it was a very sweet time. There was also an English chorus. They did a little Spanglish there and rotated back and forth. And we're very thankful. These are the older children in the church. And so we also had a few others that would share a few hymns, had a meditation, and we're able just to share in that time together there at the church. This was a week ago from yesterday. And so we're thankful for that time. And then that concluded with us having a time of a dinner for the officers of the church, the teachers, and I guess me, the missionary. So I got invited. But it was a wonderful time just to spend with all of those, and the Lord really is prospering the church. We're thankful. Even a spiritual prospering has happened within the souls of the members there. We're thankful for all that God is doing, including bringing many visitors. The last Lord's Day we were there, a week ago, we had 70 in the morning service, which is quite big for us. We only bought 75 chairs, so we may have to buy some more in the future or bring back the white plastic chairs. But it's really a blessing to have, and almost it's difficult to keep up with all the new visitors. And a friend's inviting someone, another friend, a coworker, a family member, and there it's a very relational culture, and so they're very interested to come. And usually what had happened in the past is they come once and we don't see them again. But several visitors, several couples have come and are regularly attending, and they've been coming for a while, and some are requesting to go through the process of membership. And there, the membership class that we do, it's recorded, but it is quite lengthy because there's a lot that needs to be gone through, especially different backgrounds they come through. It's also somewhat of a guard if someone's really not super interested, that they wouldn't take the time to go through that. But we want to be very clear about who we are, be honest, our beliefs, what's required of the Lord, what a biblical church looks like. And so we're very thankful for that. Thankful for the new members as well. We have, I think, 5 or 6 that are in this process of applying for membership. So pray that the Lord would give them the strength to follow through and finish that process. That the Lord would also grant us unity as members there in the church. Also, as you know, I am in the elder evaluation there at the church, which began right after we were received into the membership. And so we've been able to hear from the brethren there about their mind of that. And also, this has allowed us to do a few oversight meetings where we've been able to go and just ask them about not only the elder evaluation and what they see in me, but also their spiritual state, the state of the church. And so we've had very encouraging meetings with them. They've been very thankful. It's something that hasn't really happened in the church before, and so this is somewhat new, but they're very thankful for it. And the difference between doing an oversight here versus there is Costa Ricans like to talk a lot. And so these oversight meetings, 3-4 hours or more. But we're very thankful that they would open up and just see that as an opportunity. And so pray for the church. Right now we're currently preaching. Pastor Adrian's preaching through Exodus in the mornings. I'm preaching through Titus. Finally got to chapter 2, and so now we're focusing on those relationships, the calling of a godly man or woman within the Church of Christ, both older and younger. And there's been a lot of fruit from that, even from the preaching of Pastor Adrian in Exodus. And so pray for those endeavors, that the Lord would be pleased to work in us and through us there. And a few prayer requests that I want to leave you with, and I'll leave a few moments for questions if there are any. Pray for more laborers to be raised up. Even in the church, there are 2 gifted brothers, 2 men who teach regularly. It's been less frequent since we arrived, but they have desires to at least teach and preach the Word of God. And we don't know what the future may hold with them, but they're faithful brothers. Pray also, not just for our church, but that more churches will be planted in Costa Rica and the surrounding countries and regions. There are many great needs. I think I've explained it here before. You're not going to have somebody who's going to drive 45 minutes to go to church on a normal basis. And so what we're seeing with 2 families coming from an hour and a half is just a miracle of God, that He would stir them up so much to see, because that would never happen, right, in our minds down there. But nothing's too hard for the Lord. And so we're thankful for that, but pray. Their desire is to see healthy churches in these regions that they're coming from, these areas. Pray for the eldership process. Lord willing, I think today is the last day for all the elder evaluations to be turned in down there in Costa Rica. And Lord willing, if all is in agreement, then January 25th will be the tentative date for my ordination there. And so please be in prayer for that. We originally had it scheduled for February 1st, so you may have heard February somewhere. Then we found out that's election day. They do it on Sunday. And some of the members are registered to vote in San Jose, where they've lived prior, and so they're going to go to church down there and vote. So not everybody would be there, so we moved it back a week to January 25th. Pray as well for our continued adjustment, for the Lord to help us in that. and especially in the language, for all of us just to adjust back to ministry, to hearing sermons in Spanish, to having fellowship and times in Spanish. Right now I'm translating the morning sermon when Pastor Adrian preaches to English for the children. We've got a little, I don't know what you call it, a microphone that connects and they can hear it just here, and they can wear a little pouch that lets them hear. But I want them to hear at least one sermon in English, but pray for them as well, that the Lord would help them in that endeavor and that God would help us tremendously. So I think, pastors, we've got a few moments for questions. Is that okay? Yeah. Excuse me.
It still says 1689 church.
Yes.
Did you use that in teaching?
Yes, yeah, we use that. And so when we constituted in 2019, we talked through the confession, spent time doing that. But for most people, this is new. And so they've never been in a Reformed Baptist church before. And even we saw with the eldership process, many of them have never seen a plurality of elders. They've not seen a senior pastor and the worship pastor or whatever it may be, but they've never seen a true parity of elders with equal shared authority. And so even that in our conversations have been good questions. Just, how is this going to practically work out? But yes, to answer your question, we are subscribed to the 1689 as well. Mm-hmm. Yes.
What's the mindset, I guess, of those individuals who come from either a Pentecostal or a Catholic background to a Reformed background?
Yeah, at first I always say it's like drinking from a fire hose. It's a lot to take in at first. But usually, in many cases, I'm just trying to think through most of them. Most of them that came from that background have just had this restlessness about them. Something they couldn't put their finger on in this church. And they just really wrestled with it. And then what happens, usually in most cases, they started searching online. They found a preacher. Usually John MacArthur is one that happens a lot. And they start searching for that kind of church in Costa Rica. And quite often they found our Facebook page and start listening to sermons. This is the case with our brother Victor, the chef that I was telling you about. He started listening to sermons. He's like, I've never heard preaching like that before. And then they start coming and realize, this is what the Word of God would have us. So that's a lot of it, is that, or a family member invites them. We had several of those. And so usually it's challenging for them at first, because think in the context of just the music. Right? It's very different. Right? And very, very different. And so that's a challenge for many folks. But when they see that this is what the Word of God teaches, and our worship looks like this for a reason, because we believe it's scriptural, and they're teachable and want to say, yeah, this is how the Lord would have it. But it takes some time. We've had, I think there are a few that came from maybe a fundamental Baptist background, but the rest either came from Roman Catholicism or Pentecostalism. And when I say Pentecostalism, the majority there is usually either the prosperity gospel or the oneness Pentecostals, which deny the Trinity outright. And so that's probably, I would say, the majority of Pentecostals there. There's not a lot of sound gospel-preaching Pentecostal churches there, like you may see some here, at least that have the gospel. So yeah, that's the background. I think I got your question, but more or less it's that. Pray for that as well, that we would be winsome when people do visit us or have questions. And usually it produces really good conversations, just answering all those questions. That's another reason that the membership class is lengthy, because it gets into that and all of those particulars that you would find there addressing those. So yeah, great question. Yes?
What's the koinonia within the church, like among the brethren?
Yeah, I think it's been good. Yeah. Yeah, fellowship, the time with the brethren. I would say this, and this is what they have said. Over the last couple of years, they've been maybe too busy a lot of times, and so they've struggled a lot with that. It doesn't mean that they're not getting together and having those times of fellowship, but on the Lord's Day, it's kind of been reserved to that. And then during the week, people have been going about their own things, working and what have it. And so, we've been very intentional when we have arrived to invite people over to our meals throughout the week, if they're around, but also on the Lord's Day. And I would say I'm encouraged by it now. I think obviously we need to grow in areas in that. We need to grow in and not just inviting the same people over, all of us as a church, I mean, and just to also spend that intentional time, if I can use that cliche, with one another throughout the week. And so it's a lot of people have to travel a distance or live a distance for their jobs, and so it makes it challenging during the week. And you know how it is. You're exhausted and you don't want to give. But once you do come, I think everybody's thankful for that. And we were very thankful. Only 2 members weren't able to come to the Thanksgiving that we had at our house. They were in San Jose working. And so we had almost all the members. And I think we're 27 members now, somewhere in there. And so that was with their children as well. But yeah, it's obviously we need to continue to grow in that. But we are encouraged, I think. And we're thankful now that, we used to, when we first got there, learning Spanish, I remember there was just this fatigue that you couldn't describe. It was a mental fatigue of trying to speak in Spanish for hours on end, and by God's grace, we feel like that we don't have that now as much. And so we're very thankful for that. Yeah.
Is there any thoughts or hopes? I know there's multiple Reformed Baptist churches in Costa Rica now, by God's grace, of an association starting. Is there agreement amongst the men on that, or any talks about formal association beginning?
Yes, we do have formal association. It started, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. So four churches, I believe. The Rica is a part of it. Los Lagos in San Jose, the churches down there. And so actually the conference with Justin Miller who came, that was one of our associational conferences that we try to do. Each church tries to host one whenever possible. So yes, we've been doing that, and when we get back, I believe the second week of February, we have the General Assembly where we meet together, and we're actually hosting it in Rica, so everybody's coming up. And I've been tasked to lead that, because Lord willing, I'll be one of the pastors by then. And so yeah, we're very thankful for that. It's another element. Being where we're at, it's a long drive, and it's hard. We've had several of the brothers and sisters come up and visit us from the other churches, which is always an encouragement. But it is a tremendous effort, because you're going to just plan a whole day to travel and a whole day to travel back. Also, to that note, it's been a little more informal, but we've had between our church in Rica, Adrian and myself, Andres and his dad Emmanuel in Bagaces, and also Pastor Josue in Miramar. We've been meeting once a month, us just to have a time of prayer. We're reading through one of Spurgeon's book on the ministry. We're also sharing requests and then just spending the day together, and that's been just a tremendous blessing for us, and just to share those loads together. So yes.
So what is the health of the other churches in our Los Lagos,
Yeah, it's going to vary. We'll start in the capital region, the capital area. Los Lagos is right there in Heredia, which is close by to downtown, 30 minutes or so. 2 hours with traffic, but it's close. So they're bursting at the seams. They continue to have space problems. And I'm not sure. I should have put it up here. I'll show, if you're interested, I'll show it to you or send it out on the Signal chat. The recent annual photos, like every chair is full. They planted twice, and the Lord keeps replenishing those empty seats with people. And so I think they're growing. The pastors are struggling with that aspect of, there's 3 of them now, to shepherd well, I think 180 members. And so that's a challenge for them, so pray for them. Also, they're having significant issues with parking around the building. So it's like a street where houses are. They've turned this house into a church many years ago, and they bought another church behind it and to add more space, but there's no parking. And so the neighbors are getting really angry. They've called the police a few times because somebody parked out in front of their house. And so they're praying. Their prayers that the Lord would perhaps provide them another building or another opportunity to plant a church. And so pray for them. I think San Jose is similar, as I mentioned. They're growing, looking at church planting opportunities. The church in Alajuela is the same. They're in their 4th building now because they kept outgrowing each one of them. And so the Lord continues to provide people to come, and they've had a new pastor there. And so I'd say, by God's grace, they're doing well, those churches. As it comes to Orotina, you guys remember Jose Marchena, the pastor who died, that I mentioned to you guys last year. That church is continuing to struggle with the weight of losing one of their pastors. The Lord has also raised up Pastor Eric Gamboa, who was already there. And he is settling into that role now of full-time ministry. And it looks like, God willing, that he may have some extra support to be dedicated fully to the ministry. But pray for them. Miramar has struggled, struggling financially, struggling. They're looked at, the best way to say it, and what Pastor Josue has told me, is they're seen as a cult from the community because they go out and evangelize and because they are not Catholic. And so they're not part of the one true church according to Catholics, the Roman Catholics. And so that's been a challenge for them. They have really struggled financially to the point where they're not able to pay Pastor Josue anymore his the equivalent Social Security, health care, things that are all included in Costa Rica because of socialism. And so they're just praying, trusting the Lord in that endeavor. Bagaces is doing well. They've had some new members. They're still praying for more men. They have no deacons still, and so that's a big area of need. Praying for. They have 15 families, and I think they have 5 men in the church, and 2 of them are pastors. And so pray for that church. Pray for fruits from evangelism. And then, of course, as I mentioned already, the situation will be ready. But yeah, overall, I think that would be a pattern of there are some trials and tribulations among the churches. The Lord, really, I'm convinced, is bringing a wave of revival to this country. And we see that, but there's still those, I think financial is a huge problem amongst the churches, and those challenges there. But that's a little survey. Any others? Yes. We speak English. We want that little time to speak English. I mean, it's just English. We'll, here or there Spanish sentence, but mostly English. Kids are doing school in English, and I think that's going well this year. And so they're able to do a lot of those classes online. And as I mentioned, keep praying for that issue with homeschooling being technically illegal in Costa Rica. That's always a challenge. Some people are nosy and want to report you to the state for not doing it correctly, but being Americans and we can get away with it, and being that they have an umbrella school. The issue comes about for most Costa Ricans is they can get it if they have an umbrella school, but when they want to go to college, the university, they won't accept those diplomas, those degrees that they get, so they can't get into university. And so that's really where the problem happens. But we haven't had any issues. That's been going well, but that's in English. But yeah, mostly English. We want a little reprieve when we get home. Feel like I can communicate better. I think we always say this, but I think now I speak 2 languages poorly. So this is what happens. Yeah. Yes.
Aside from the schooling issue, is there anything worth commenting on about just the political climate, church-state issues, visa issues, attitude towards Americans, anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a lot to say. How much time we got? It is challenging in many senses. I think politically, there is a president, he's more moderate in what we would say. There's not really the distinction between liberal and conservatism as we have here. There's 20 political parties, 20 different men who are running, or candidates, and women, for the upcoming election. And so it's challenging to know who's with what, and they're all kind of specialized. So it makes it interesting politically. Maybe I'll just say that. It's unique in a lot of systems. It is a socialistic country, so there's provides unique challenges in the matters of health care and whatnot, which is why we go to the private hospital more so. But not everybody has that luxury, and so that's challenging for a lot of folks. What else did you want me to comment on?
Government friendly to churches in America?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. The country is very friendly, and even Costa Ricans are very friendly to Americans. They see that, they understand that that's a lot of the money that's coming into the economy through tourism. But what's happening now is a lot of Americans came and bought up properties, and now the price of property, houses, have all went up. To give you an example, in Rica, an acre of land costs $50,000. And so that's what it is there. Keep in mind, Costa Rica is small. I think Virginia is 2.5 times bigger than Costa Rica, and so there's not a lot of land to go around. So that's challenging in that sense, but overall there's a friendly posture. The government allows for, what do you want to call it, the freedom of expression of religion. And so there's no problem with preaching on the streets, no problem, with starting churches. The unique challenge in that is the ministry of health is the one who dictates if a church has its operating license, whatever it's called here, the means to operate. And so, for example, with Pastor Josue, the challenging part is if he doesn't pay the Social Security and all that into the system, the Ministry of Health can say, well, we're going to close down this church because the church is not paying into this and they're not allowed to operate anymore. And so there can be some challenges to that regard. I think that they're able to pay some of that and avoid that. But during COVID, that was the issue. The Ministry of Health said churches can't meet. And in order to meet, this was 6 months, 8 months after, you got to be vaccinated, and you can't even come to church unless you're vaccinated. And we're going to keep all churches shut down. And so that was a challenging. By God's grace, the new president removed all of those restrictions 2 years later and allowed churches to continue. So it's complicated in a lot of ways. We're not sure what the next president, the prior president to the one we have now, was extremely liberal in the sense that they, during COVID, secretly passed the homosexual marriage was allowed now. Thankfully, abortion is still illegal in the country. And so there's still some of that, I guess if I want to say it, morality left over. A lot of Roman Catholics. But yeah, it's complicated in a lot of senses. And so pray for that. Pray for the upcoming elections. Whichever one of the 20 the Lord decides to put in. But yeah, there's not many that we would say, it's just not, two parties. So it's difficult. One will be focusing on one area. And yeah, so I think that's probably sufficient. If you have more questions, let me know in that end. I can say a lot more. Anyone else? Yes? Yeah, they are. I don't have much involvement right now other than occasionally I'll recommend someone, which I recommend recently, Pastor Eric Gamboa, which recommended to Pastor Eric Rosales, who's from Los Lagos. He's kind of the point man now in Costa Rica. But something to keep in mind is, Heart Cry has, I think, a 7-year commitment. And then after year 2, they start reducing that, I think, until they phase it out, maybe 20% a year. I can't remember exactly what it is. So, some of these men have been supported for several years, and that salary is going to go down a bit. And so that's even an example, something to pray for. Pastor Adrian's been supported by Heart Cry, but my prayer is that the church would take more of that responsibility to see the benefit of having a pastor full-time. Culturally, it's just never heard of that someone would pay their pastor. It's expected that a pastor would work, have a bivocational job. And so we need a lot of teaching on that, and I pray to do that if the Lord will allow. So yeah, those types of things. But I think five men still, maybe 6 now, are supported by Heart Cry, one in El Salvador. And so we're very thankful for that. It's been a blessing to the churches, all that said. Okay, well, I think we're running short of time. Appreciate all your questions, your attention. I'm available for any more afterwards, but let me just conclude us in prayer.